I never imagined a food delivery turning into police lights in my cul-de-sac, let alone my neighbor getting hauled off in cuffs. But that's how this mess started, with one takeout bag, a doorbell that never rang, and the queen bee of our HOA deciding she ran the whole street. If neighborhood justice and real-life HOA Karen stories are your thing, stick with me to the end. And hey, if you enjoy this kind of story, hit like, tap subscribe, and tell me HOA Karen in the comments so I know you're here for it. This one begins slow, but it builds, and when it breaks all at once. 3 months after I moved into Maple Ridge, one of those tidy Ohio neighborhoods where the mailboxes all match, the grass is kept at just the right height and folks wave with 2 fingers from the steering wheel, I ran face first into the woman who ran the HOA like it was her own little city hall. Her name was Donna Keller, early 60s, always put together, sharp haircut that could slice paper. The night it started, I'd come off a long week. I work from home, and I joke that my steps for the day come from walking between my desk and the coffee machine. By Friday, I ran out of steam and ordered from my favorite steak place. I watched every dot on the delivery app like a kid watching a parade. It hit arrived, and my stomach did that little drum roll. Then 5 minutes, 10 minutes, no knock, no bell. I refreshed the app, and there it was, a photo of my meal, not at my door, but at a teal door 3 houses down. That teal door was famous on our street. It belonged to Donna. I called the driver. He was baffled. The lady told me she was expecting it. Said your name before I could ask, he muttered. That's how I met our HOA Karen, and I had no idea how far she'd take things. I walked down and rang her bell. She opened the door with that poised, I own this place smile. The smell hit me first. My steak, my sides, the warm, buttery rolls. I kept my voice calm. I'm pretty sure my dinner was dropped here by mistake. She didn't blink. With a syrupy tone that somehow felt like a threat, she told me the HOA didn't allow food deliveries after 6 on weekdays. She even threw in a section number like she carried the bylaws in her purse. As president, I have to enforce it. Consider this your friendly first warning, she said, still smiling. I told her I'd paid for that meal. She said she'd already disposed of it and that I'd get a written notice in the morning. Then the door clicked shut in my face. I stood there a while, heat rising in my chest. I went back home and ate a slice of stubborn pizza, more mad than hungry. True to her word, the next morning there was a violation letter in my mailbox with official letterhead and all the trimmings, except for one detail. The delivery after 6 rule didn't exist anywhere in the documents I'd been given at closing. I checked. Twice. I emailed the board, auto replies, silence. And I told myself it wasn't worth starting a war over one dinner. That was me being reasonable. Donna wasn't done. That week, it happened again, then again. It got so predictable it felt like she had my deliveries bugged. Sometimes she'd tell the drivers I canceled. Sometimes she'd scold them about idling too long, like she was writing tickets. Once she pretended to be my wife. I'm not married, never have been, and it threw a 20-something driver so hard he apologized to me on the app later. I watched $50 here, $40 there disappear into Donna's hands until I did the math and realized I'd lost close to $300. That wasn't the worst part. The worst part was the look my neighbors started giving me. A quick glance, then suddenly finding the sky very interesting. The cheery hellos at the mailbox dried up. A dog-walking couple who used to chat about football crossed the street when they saw me. One morning, there was a note on my doormat in block letters, "Follow the rules or move." I kept it in a Ziploc because I had a feeling I'd need everything documented. And I did document, because I installed a doorbell camera. I started saving every clip, every timestamp, every bit of proof that my dinner had been disposed of by someone who swore it was for the good of the neighborhood. I tried doing it the nice way. I wrote formal complaints to the HOA's management company and to the board members. A couple of them seemed polite in email, but it was like everyone was afraid of Donna. At a tense community chat, A nervous neighbor leaned in and told me Donna had been president nearly a decade. He whispered about how she got a family's tree cut down while they were on vacation, said chalk drawings on a driveway counted as vandalism, and fined a young couple daily till they erased them. He finished with, "Nobody stands up to her." It sounded like a ghost story people tell around a campfire. I'm not a fighter by nature, but I knew a bully when I saw one. So I made a decision. I would stop playing nice. I would set a trap. I'm not proud that it felt a little thrilling, the way a chess player must feel when they see a checkmate coming 7 moves out. I opened the app and placed the biggest, fanciest delivery order I had ever made in my life. Wagyu, truffle-heavy entree, a couple bottles of good wine, and desserts rich enough to need seat belts. The total crossed $500. I wasn't buying dinner. I was buying evidence. I turned my camera sensitivity up, sat by the front window, and waited. Sometimes when you lay a trap, you worry the other person got wise to you. Not Donna. When the delivery car crept onto our loop, she strode out of her house like a sheriff in an old movie, intercepting the driver at my curb. My doorbell cam caught her voice perfectly, cool and certain. Community regulations require me to accept all deliveries. She said it as if the words were printed on stone tablets. The driver looked trapped between confusion and the need to finish his shift. He handed her my bags, my boxes, my bottles, then walked away fast, hating every second of it. I didn't storm over. I didn't shout. I called the non-emergency police line. I told the dispatcher it had been going on for weeks, that I had video, that tonight's order was over $500, and that I had a digital receipt ready. She took it seriously. She said an officer would be dispatched. I thanked her and hung up. I know folks my age and folks older than me often feel burnt by making a fuss. We were taught to keep our heads down, but there's a line where staying quiet becomes letting yourself be pushed around, and I'd crossed it. It didn't take long for the patrol cars to roll in. No sirens, just those steady blue lights that make your heart thump for reasons you can't even name. From my window, I watched the officers ring Donna's bell. She opened up like she was welcoming company. Then she saw uniforms and her face changed, control sliding off it like rain off a windshield. She started explaining things with her hands, like she was giving a lecture on neighborhood order. One officer peeled away from the doorstep and came to talk to me. He kept his tone neutral, like he'd been trained for 100 of these moments, and told me she claimed she was acting as HOA president to confiscate deliveries that violated guidelines. I pulled up my copy of the HOA rules and showed him the sections on my phone. There wasn't a word about food deliveries. Not a letter. Then I opened my camera roll and pressed play. He watched Donna take my food, and then he watched a series of clips. Daylight, dusk, night, over and over again. His face got more serious as the minutes rolled. He asked the value of that night's order. I held up the app total, north of 500. Itemized with a bottle of Bordeaux I'd been saving for a good day and a steak I was now determined to never let her touch. He thanked me and stepped away. I stood at the edge of my drive with my hands in my pockets, trying not to shake. My mother used to say, "Truth doesn't panic." I whispered it to myself. Then I saw it. I saw the officer reach for his cuffs as his partner spoke to Donna. Her mouth kept moving, but the game was over. They read her rights. She turned the color of overcooked salmon, and moments later she was walking toward the cruiser, hands behind her back. I didn't cheer. I didn't clap. I just breathed. Later that night, one of the officers came back for a full statement and told me what the charge would be. Grand larceny. "Theft over $500 is a felony here," he said. He added that she claimed she was disposing of the food for health reasons, but they'd found my whole order in her kitchen, wine uncorked on the counter, entrees tucked in the fridge like a midnight snack waiting its turn. That was the legal side. The neighborhood side blew up just as quick. The next evening, the board called an emergency HOA meeting, and it felt like the whole subdivision showed up. There wasn't a spare chair left in the room. They'd put one item on the agenda, Donna. Here's the strange thing about a person like that. They create silence in people for years. Then once one person speaks, the silence breaks like thin ice. Folks started coming up to the mic, one by one. I saw quiet gardeners, young parents, retirees in baseball caps, and they told stories. They told stories about surprise finds, about threats delivered on holiday weekends, about letters taped to doors for things like a grill left on a patio for 15 extra minutes, and about how the Yellow Door family got a warning because their grandson drew a rocket ship with sidewalk chalk. When it was my turn, I didn't give any speech. I didn't point fingers. I pressed play on a compilation I'd cut together from my doorbell camera. Donna picking up bags at noon. Donna intercepting drivers at dusk. Donna in a bathrobe at 9 p.m. Donna in gardening gloves at 7 a.m. Phone to her ear like she was on official business. You could feel the room shift as the tape went on. The board voted right there to remove her as president. The vice president, a retired accountant named Harold, announced they'd be auditing the last 3 years of HOA finances. The room hummed after that. The low, amazed sound people make when the thing they thought would never happen finally does. I drove home on a quiet street and slept the best I had in months. 2 days later, there was a knock on my door. I half expected another officer, maybe some follow-up question. But it was Donna. She looked smaller. Her perfect bob had wilted. Makeup barely there, designer purse clutched like a life vest. She went straight to the point. "My attorney says I need to make restitution," she said, voice thin, a little ragged. She held out a thick envelope. "This covers everything you lost." Plus interest. I took it, set it on the hall table, and told her, "Thank you." She didn't leave. She stood there like she was waiting for the real thing she came for. When I asked what that was, her face cracked. She asked if I understood she could lose her real estate license over this, that a conviction would stain her name in ways she couldn't wash out. She called it a misunderstanding. I told her I just wanted to eat my dinner in peace. That was true when I said it, but later I realized it wasn't the whole truth. I wanted my peace back. My walks to the mailbox, my waves to the neighbor in the blue truck, my ability to order a burger without running a stakeout. And then my phone chimed from the counter, the cheerful, ordinary chime of a food delivery arriving. I looked at the screen, smiled a little, and said, "Excuse me." That's my lunch. And this time I think it'll make it to my door. That's the bones of it. But the bones don't show what it felt like. I'll tell you, because most folks won't talk about it. At least not out loud. There's a quiet shame that creeps in when someone makes you feel like you're trouble, like you're the squeaky wheel, the neighbor who can't just let things be. I was raised to be polite. Many of us were. My dad taught me to keep my head, and my mom taught me to bring a plate of cookies when there was a bump between folks. I did all the neighborly things when I moved in. I said hello at the mailbox. I held doors. I broke down boxes properly for recycling. But when someone decides to make an example out of you, and some people do that, they look for a target, it's not your manners they test, it's your backbone. And that, I had to learn again, in my 50s. When I set that trap, I did it to protect myself. But I also did it because I knew if I didn't push back, Donna would do it to someone else. Maybe a widower who doesn't have the energy to fight, or a young mom juggling toddlers and grocery bags, or a retired couple on a fixed income who'd eat the loss to avoid a fuss. I know a lot of you watching have met your own version of a gatekeeper, someone who thinks titles give them a license to trespass on your life. They don't. Titles don't change the law. Common sense doesn't go out the window because a person prints the word president under their name. The officer who came back to my door said it plain. Theft over a certain dollar amount is a crime, no matter whose name is on the HOA letterhead. That was the part that made me feel steady again. Not happy. No one's happy the day a neighbor is arrested. Just steady. Grounded in something firmer than one person's opinion. The days after the arrest were not easy. You'd think it would all be clean and simple after that. It wasn't. There were whispered conversations when I walked past. A couple of neighbors were angry with me, not with Donna. They talked about embarrassing the community. They said I should have handled it neighbor to neighbor, as if I hadn't tried that first night when I asked for my own dinner back. One gentleman told me I could have let it go, for the sake of peace. I asked him what peace he meant, and he didn't have an answer. If you're older and watching this, you know the dance. Keep the water smooth. Don't rock the boat. The problem is, sometimes the boat is already taking on water, and you're the only one bailing. There were bright spots. Folks I barely knew came by with kind words, a cake, a handshake that lasted a second longer than usual. An older woman down the street told me she'd gotten a warning last year because her grandson left a toy truck on the porch for 2 days. I paid the fine, she said, because I didn't want the headache. When I asked if she'd speak at the meeting, she said, "I will now." That meant something. When the board voted to remove Donna, it felt like the end of a long storm. But it was also the beginning of cleanup. Audits don't fix trust overnight. They don't fix the way people shrink when someone in power raises their voice. That'll take time. I'd be lying if I said I didn't second-guess myself. The night before the meeting, I sat at my kitchen table with my phone and that envelope of cash from Donna's restitution and stared at both like they might give me answers. There's the legal right thing and there's the human thing, and it's not always easy to see both at once. I asked myself if she was sorry or just scared. It probably doesn't matter for the record, but it matters to our hearts. That's where folks my age and plenty older feel the weight. We've seen enough of life to know people are complicated. You can hold two truths at once, that someone did wrong and that they're more than the wrong they did. Holding both doesn't mean letting go of consequences. It means remembering you're human, too. Once the board changed hands, there were new conversations. Real ones. Not just about grass height and mailbox paint. People wanted to talk about community again, about block parties, about the neighbor in the yellow house who needed a ramp for her front steps. The new vice president, Harold, set up office hours at the clubhouse. He didn't smile because it was on a list. He smiled because he liked people. I think we'd forgotten what that looked like. As for me, I changed the way I live in small ways. I know my delivery folks by name now. I tip in cash when I can. I make a point of returning carts at the grocery store because it reminds me we all share the same parking lot, the same street, the same sky. And when I see something off, I speak up sooner, not louder, just sooner. It's like catching a leak when it's a drip instead of waiting till the ceiling caves. You might ask where Donna landed. That's for the courts to decide over time, and for the state license board too. I do know she paid what she owed me, and I hope she learned something good from a hard season. I wouldn't wish the cold shoulder of a neighborhood on anyone, even the person who gave me the cold shoulder first. But I also won't pretend what she did was anything other than what the officer called it: a crime. Her being in charge never changed the fact that my front porch is mine. I'm telling you this in plain talk because so many of you write me messages about your own HOAs, your co-ops, your towns. You say you feel invisible. You say you feel like common sense is out of fashion. I hear you. You're not alone. You don't have to be mean to be firm. You don't have to shout to make a stand. Document. Be patient. Keep your receipts. Keep your head. And when the moment comes, call the number you need to call. You'll shake. You'll wonder if you overstepped. You'll stare at your ceiling fan at 3 a.m. That's normal. So is relief when someone finally tells you you're not crazy, that what you stand on, your rights, your little square of the world, still counts. If you stuck with me to the end, thank you. If you've lived through your own HOA Karen saga, tell me about it down below. And if you got something from this, maybe the nudge you needed to believe your eyes, tap like, hit subscribe, and drop HOAKAREN in the comments so I know to bring you more of these. There are a lot of us out here who've dealt with a gatekeeper, and stories like this don't just entertain. They remind us we're allowed to close our own front doors and eat our own dinners in peace. Before I close, I'll lay out the beats, not because you need them to care about my story, but because the shape might help you with your own. It started with a lie about a rule that didn't exist. It turned into a pattern. The pattern turned into proof. The proof turned into a call. The call turned into cuffs. The cuffs turned into a meeting. And the meeting turned into a neighborhood finally saying, no. Enough if you need a sign, maybe this is it. And because details matter, especially to the folks who want to argue, yes, that first night speech from her lips was word-for-word certainty that our HOA had a strict policy against deliveries after 6. That claim wasn't in the bylaws anywhere I looked. And believe me, I looked. She told me I'd get a written notice, and I did. She told me she'd disposed of my food and, well, the officer later said differently. That's not me guessing. That's what he told me when he returned to take my statement. That my order was sitting in her refrigerator and the wine was still on the counter. It's strange how something as normal as a takeout bag can become a courtroom word like evidence. But that's what it became when she turned a neighborly street into her own checkpoint. The emergency meeting wasn't a circus. It was something better. It was a town square. People, nice, regular people, took turns speaking, and the board listened, really listened. Then they voted to remove her and to pull the books for a full 3-year look. When I played those clips of her grabbing takeout bags at all hours, I didn't feel triumphant. I felt tired, like I'd finally put down a heavy box I'd carried farther than I should have. If you've carried one like that, go easy on yourself. Set it down sooner. Ask for a hand with it. It's okay. That's what neighborhoods are supposed to be for. The very last scene I'll leave you with is simple, because simple is what I wanted back. A Saturday afternoon, sun through the trees, my phone chiming in that friendly way. I opened the door to find a brown paper bag on my mat. No teal door in the photo, no lecture. Just dinner. Mine. Where it belonged. I brought it inside and said, Grace. And when I took the first bite, it tasted like more than steak. It tasted like a neighborhood remembering itself. If this story kept you watching till now, I'd be grateful if you'd like the video, subscribe for more real HOA stories, and comment HOA Karen, so I know you're part of this community. I read what you write, and I appreciate your kindness. For those of you who are dealing with your own Donna right now, I hope this gives you the courage to pick up the phone, to press save on your camera, and to believe that the law is still the law, even when someone tries to make you forget. And because I know some of you are detail people like me, yes, this all started with a photo at the wrong front door. Yes, she said there was a delivery curfew. Yes, I received a formal violation. Yes, I set a careful trap with a big order. Yes, the police came quietly and left with her in cuffs. Yes, the board removed her after seeing the footage. And yes, she came back with an envelope and a sorry face. All true, every bit of it. If you're still here, thank you again. You made it all the way to the end, and that means a lot, especially to someone like me who once thought staying quiet was the same thing as being kind. It isn't. Sometimes kindness is telling the truth, clear and steady, with the camera on and the receipt in your hand. Stay well, take care of each other, and next time your phone chimes with a delivery at your door, may it be exactly that. Your dinner, your peace, your home.